Welcome, my dear viewer, to Dr. Paul Kibicho YouTube channel. This evening, before I leave, I've been very busy, of course, working towards what we call formalization of Quest Pinnacle Investments Limited. And I wanted to remind you a few things about what we call pooled resources. Many people don't seem to understand what pooled resources are. As a matter of fact, even the biggest bank that we have in Kenya today, which goes by the name Equity, what they have done is basically pooling the resources from other people. But the concept is a bit different because theirs is what we call a commercial bank, but in our case is an investment venture. So when you talk about pooled funds, it is basically a term used to refer to a set of money from individuals or investors for investment purposes. So pooling of resources basically means that this is an avenue created by a group of individuals who will be championing the idea, who referred to as set of money from new people, individuals, or investors for investment purposes. The funds are combined with the intention of benefiting from economies of scale. Economies of scale mean if you are to produce one single item or one unit, it becomes very, very expensive. But when you produce several units, basically the concept and the idea is to make what we call cost reduction mechanism. So when you produce goods in large scale, you reduce what we call the cost of production. And that is basically now when you pull resources together, the amount of money you could have been charged as an individual will be consolidated. So we say the funds are combined with the intention of benefiting from economies of scale through cost minimization. Such funds include, but not limited to, hedge funds. What's a hedge fund? A hedge fund is an alternative investment where investors, accredited investors or institutional investors pool resources in terms of mutual funds, in terms of pension funds, and that amount of money that they get can be used for what we call various reasons. It can be used, you can lend that money to financial institutions at a negotiated rate, which of course will be higher. Number two, you can even give that money to institutions that require to disburse funds to their members, like pension schemes. Sometimes they don't have that liquid cash, and you also agree on them how much money will be given you in terms of returns. So those funds are aggregated into one single account or pooled investment account, like we are doing now. We are pooling the resources, and we said after 1 year, that is when now we shall be able to put this money into the projected or the intended investment vehicle so that we can now start earning our returns on investments. So those people will be able to give you what we call a trust indenture. A trust indenture. What is a trust indenture? A trust indenture is a legally binding agreement between the members of the pooled resources. And this particular indenture, trust indenture, normally defines or clearly defines what the role of the individual members is, what are the management rights, and what is the distribution of earnings or dividends look like. So we'll be able to do all that for you. And I'll just give you at least 3 importances of pooled funds in financial markets. One, they open new investment opportunities. With our funds, we can be able now to go and negotiate even with those particular investment organizations, other investment organizations, especially those whose cash flow sometimes has issues, and we can negotiate a better rate of return with us. We can take this money to what we call an investment bank because they require cash flow. Because remember, there are those investments that are maturing. If you had put your money for 1 year, there are those who may opt not to roll over. Roll over means you say continue investing money on my behalf. So you never know. Sometimes cash demands are very, very high. And of course, especially in Kenya, Kenyans have insatiable appetite for loans. Kenyans have insatiable appetite for money. And as a matter of fact, this one has been proved by what we call by what we call the Furisa. You can imagine Kenyans are Furisaing 1.2 billion shillings a day. 1.2 billion shillings a day. And you can imagine if you go to what we call online lending facilities, I can tell you without a wink of an eye that if you go to, for instance, those they're charging between 8.064% and others are charging 7.65% per month. So you can see that the real appetite for money is there. So this